Oh my. Hey guys, it's Leah with Family Heritage Living Devotion. Had another thought I wanted to share with you. I seem to be full of them lately. But with the COVID-19 thing, and people had been in lockdown for a while, I saw a lot of issues with women being home, not knowing and having to homeschool their children, being home, not knowing, how were they going to get work done. They were kind of like overwhelmed, wanting to get work done and have to take care of the kids and homeschool and take care of the home. And I know for most of us that already homeschool and work from home and our homemakers are kind of like, what's the problem? This is my life, and yet you finally get a taste. But that's not to say there's not sympathy there, because I understand that if you don't do it, if you haven't done it, it's difficult, it's hard. But I think one of the things that came to mind is, this is something that feminism has robbed from us as women. I read it the other day, and I honestly can't remember who it was, so I can't quote them, but it was somebody who said it, and I'm just going to quote roughly what they said was, and they were talking about feminism. Having the freedom in this country is not the freedom to do whatever you want, but freedom is to do the right thing. And, as feminism moved in and took over the homes, women were pushed out, whether you wanted to be out or not. And if you didn't want to be out, you felt odd. You felt like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I want to be earning money? And then what happened was what? The cost of living went up, which required two incomes. Okay, so now the single family home, whether it's father or mother, had a hard time making it. And the government loved two incomes, because what happens? They get more taxes. They get more tax payments. I mean, it's a win for them either way they go. And it's a win for people that produce products that are consumed, because their prices go up. In the end, the ones that were really hurt were the ones that were supposed to be those that were freed from life of drudgery, freed from life of having to take care of people, of other people, free from not being able to follow your own pursuits, free from dishes and cooking and the horrors of it all. We had to adapt. We as women had to adapt to wanting something other than what was internal within us, because otherwise our peers looked at us like we were crazy. And you know what? This is where the conversation came from. Zebulon's very spiritual. And so is Simeon, actually. He got baptized a few weeks ago. He wanted to desperately, and he came crying that he was ready. He wanted to be baptized now, and he did not want to wait. It was like, boom, we're baptizing me now. And they talk a lot. They bring up things a lot because they're trying to figure things out in their mind. And one of the things that we've been talking about is feminism, and how the right to vote got started for women. And why did women start fighting for that? And one of the things that I tried to explain to them, and the best I could at their age, was in this country alone, because there are countries that women still don't have the right to vote. But in this country alone, when women started wanting the vote, it was for the right to have a say in things they normally didn't have a say in. And this is basically what I told them, that if every man did their responsible role and did the things that their God-given role was to do, like their father does, other women would not need to have a vote, because they would know that the man was looking out for their best interest. The man was there to take care of them. The man was there to protect them. The man was there to listen to their input, that he would seek direction from his wife, and he was there to take care of his family overall. But I said, sadly, that's not the case. Sadly, many men, there are very, very many good men, but there are also very many bad men, and they did not fill their God-given role. And women were seeing that there were things they needed a voice in. Now remember, I'm telling a 10-year-old this, okay? So I'm really simplifying this. I understand that it's more complex than this, but basically that's what it boils down to. And of course, we know that men back then had rights over the children, and if a woman left because of abuse or whatever, we're not talking about those extreme situations, because there are those situations, but the majority of women are not in those situations, and we have to keep that in context. Okay, so again, if men were to fulfill their God-given role, that would never have needed to happen. And then what happened from there is the feminism movement moved in, and they wanted a lot, and they weren't there to protect the women that couldn't protect themselves or the children that couldn't protect themselves. They were there for a different agenda. And I likened it to Adam. Adam didn't eat the fruit that was forbidden first. But you know what he didn't do when Eve came to him and said, Adam, I did this? He didn't say, you wretched woman, shame on you, let's go confess. He said, oh, here, let me try it. Adam wasn't in control of his home. Adam was not filling his God-given role in that instance. Instead, he joined on the bandwagon with Eve, and then they hid from God. I mean, it didn't work out real well, did it? So my focus here is that we all have roles to fill. And sometimes it's not necessarily what we want to do. Sometimes it's easier not to do those roles. You know what? Going to work every day, putting your kids in someone else's care if you have the choice to do that, because some women don't have the choice. We've talked about this before. I was raised in a single my home with my mother. She had no choice. She had to go to work. But a lot of women have choices these days, and they put their kids in daycare, or they send them to school, and it's for a totally different reason. It's not about it's about choice. And choice isn't always good. Choice alleviates responsibility sometimes. Just like abortion. Sometimes having that abortion is easier than dealing with the reality of what's going on. And eventually I'm going to tell you what, from experience, you're going to deal with that reality. You're going to deal with it. It's going to hit you like a lead duck when it does. And you're going to say, what have I done? I've never had a woman say to me that I'm so glad I didn't have kids. I've had a lot of women say to me, I regret not having children. I regret not being at home with my children. I'm not sure that I've ever known a woman. I've had some people leave comments degrading, belittling, dogging me for my stance on the fact that a woman should be at home if she has any opportunity. She should be at home. Again, there's always exceptions, but too often people make the exception the rule, and we need to reverse that and realize that there are exceptions. And in a country of 330 million, we can make that number look really big, but in the big comparison of things, the exception usually is minor, okay? And people will ride on the skirt tails of the exceptions so that they can avoid responsibility. My mother had no choice. She had to work. It was that or go on welfare. My mother was not going to go on welfare. My mother was not going to do that. And in that instance, choices that were made for her and choices that she made, it caused hardship for us as far as growing up. We, having a parent there or being part of making some bad decisions because she didn't have any options. Too many of us have options to choose differently. And it is difficult at times. But if men would stand up, Christian men, we can't expect the world to do it. We have to start with Christians. If Christian men would stand up and take their role as given, and instead of worrying about their toys and worrying about their vacations and the home they live in and what their peers think of them, and say, I'm going to sacrifice this. Honey, you're going to stay home with the kids. And if honey's willing, you would see a change in our society for the better. And you know what? If enough people did it, I don't see this happening, but if enough people did it, prices would come down, people would be more comfortable. We could do a reversal. It's not going to happen. We've gone too far. Something else is going to have to happen in our society first. But I'm speaking directly to Christians. And if you're here on this devotion channel, you know it's already about Christians, so don't get your hair in all standing up on your backside if you're not a Christian and you're listening to this. And if you are a Christian listening to this and you disagree with my stance, well, I guess I would love to have scripture, not just of the Proverbs woman where she worked. I mean, again, I worked from home because I had to, but we did it that way so I could be home and available to the children. And we did it, for years I didn't work, and it was a financial struggle for us. And when I finally did go to work in our business, it was still a financial struggle for us because we were making up years of financial difficulties. But that was what we chose so that I could be there for my kids. I could homeschool them. I could be available to them. Sometimes quantity is better than quality. Don't misread me. Quality is important, but sometimes just being available as a parent can be so instrumental in a child's life. The last few videos I've done, they're not going to garnish a lot of love from many, but I know some of you need this. You need this encouragement. I would have given almost anything to have this encouragement early in my Christian walk and been more convicted at an earlier age to be proud of the choices I made. And I can't say this enough. If you're a woman and you have to work because that's, the billing payment is dependent upon you, then that's a different story. But if you're a woman and you're choosing to work, or if your husband was wanting you to work so you can live a more plush life, and you're a Christian, I think it's worthy to turn back to the Word and say, what does God want? What does God want from me? Prosperity is great, but so is sacrifice. And are we prospering simply? Is our prosperity fake? Is it because we're working? We have two incomes coming in and other things are sacrificing? Or is our prosperity something that God is truly bringing to you, and not at the cost of your first calling, which is your family? If you're a woman and you have a family, that's your first calling. If you're a husband and you have a family, that's your first responsibility. The Bible's very clear about those things, and we just as Christians need to accept that instead of trying to excuse it, excuse our lust, our wants, our desires. When we get in tune with God, when we get in tune with His will, things don't necessarily get easier, but our heart gets a whole lot more peace and a whole lot clearer. So, all right, well, I'm going to end this so that the duck can fall, and fall where it may. I won't be standing under it. Well, God bless. We'll talk next time.